All right, hi everybody. I've got your third video here for the texting and driving app. I'm going to show you how to do a couple things to finish up the app. One is going to be to create a visual diagram over on this side in column A, just to represent what's happening in our texting and driving scenario. And then the last thing we're going to do is actually write a results formula down here at the bottom to tell us whether or not the pedestrian gets hit. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is merge all these cells together just to give us a nice blank space to include our diagram. So I'm going to highlight all those cells in column A, go up to the Format menu, merge cells, and I'm going to say merge all. All right, so it takes out those lines between the cells and gives us a nice place to put our drawing. The next place I'm going to go is up to the Insert menu and choose Drawing. This is going to open up our Google Draw interface where we can create this diagram. So the first thing we'll need is a picture of a car. I'm going to go to Insert Image. I'm going to search for a picture of a car. I'm going to choose a nice simple one here. You can choose a flashy sports car if you prefer. All right, here's our car. I'm going to shrink it down. We're going to want to make this whole diagram pretty small so it can fit next to our programming. So here's the car. The next thing I'm going to add is an arrow to represent the motion of the car. So here's my arrow. I'm going to draw it. All right, and then I'm going to go up here to line weight, and I'm going to take it up to 3, make it a little more bold. And actually, I'm going to draw 3 arrows right now because we're going to need one for distraction distance, one for reaction distance, and one for braking distance. I'm going to do them all right now. There's my next one, and here's my third one. Okay, now we need some text boxes to tell us what's going on next to each arrow. So here's our text box. I'm going to draw a little text box here, and I'm going to type distraction distance. All right, now I want to rotate this so it's vertical. So I'm going to highlight the text box if I can, and I'm going to go up here to Actions, Rotate, and we're not quite there yet. It's interesting, you have to highlight it, but not actually be typing in the text box. So now we're ready to go to Actions, Rotate, and I'm going to go counterclockwise 90 degrees. Okay, great. Now I can shrink this a little bit, and I can move it over into place. All right, I'm going to make another text box now next to my second arrow, and I'm going to say this is reaction distance. Change this so it's 2 lines. And just like before, I'm going to go to Actions, Rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees. Great. Now I'm going to move it into place. And we're ready to make one more text box down here. This is going to be our braking distance. I'm going to rotate it, go to Actions, Rotate, counterclockwise 90 degrees. And I'll move it into place. Okay, now the last thing we need is a little picture of a pedestrian at the very end of this scenario. So I'm going to go back to Insert Image, and I'm going to search for a pedestrian. All right, here we got a nice little stick figure in a crosswalk. We're going to shrink him down so he can fit down here at the bottom of our diagram. Okay, great. Now we are ready to save and close. It's going to bring our whole drawing in. I'm going to highlight it and move it right up into the corner. And then I'm going to shrink the whole diagram down so it fits in that space. Make the whole thing small. Okay. Great. There's our diagram. Now, notice in the assignment, if you will, that making this diagram can be the difference between a 3 or a 4 on your app. So if you're looking to get a 4, work through this process, build up your skills, creating some visual diagrams. If you're going to be satisfied with a 3, feel free to skip that step. Okay, here's our last part, and we don't want anyone to skip this because this is actually going to tell us the result of our scenario. Notice here, you've probably got this already, total distance the car has moved, the sum of these 3 distances that we've calculated. And now we want to know how far away was the car from the pedestrian when it started. So I'm going to type starting distance car to pedestrian. Given that this is an input, I'm going to add a color to the cell. See if I can find this purple color they've been using. No, that's not quite it, but it's close. And then I'm going to put meters, M for meters right there. Let's say this is 96. We're going to, you're going to change that input, but there's a 96. Okay. Now, the last thing we got to do, this is your last little bit of coding. We are going to say results. Results. And I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to move it over to the right side of the cell so that it's closer to our actual result. And then in here, this is where you're going to type your formula. This is your last formula. So listen up. And it's what we call the if formula. This allows you to write a logical statement and then tell the spreadsheet to make one thing appear if that statement is true and another thing if it is false. So like all of our formulas, we're going to start with an equals. We're going to type if, and then we're going to write our logical statement if the total distance traveled is greater than or equal to the distance from the car to the pedestrian. All right, so essentially, if the pedestrian gets hit, if the total distance covered is more than the distance from the car to pedestrian, and now you can write any message you want. I'm actually recreating some student work that I had copied from a couple years ago. So this student had written bad stuff is one result. If it's less, right, so essentially if that statement is false and the pedestrian doesn't get hit, we're going to write kid is alive. Again, you can add a different message if you like. If you really want to dig in, you can actually make images appear. I'll let you figure that out if you like, but it involves really just kind of the URL for an image if you want to make an image appear. Then I'm going to close the parentheses. All right, I'm going to hit enter to get out of my formula. And look, there it is, bad stuff. What if we change up here? What if the car was 130 meters away from the pedestrian when this whole scenario starts? Boom, notice our cell changes, kid is alive. All right, so there it is, your visual diagram, your results formula. Good luck, and let me know if you need any help.